Ever since I was a child, I've always speculated on the credibility of what the government reveals to the public. There are so many secrets and information that they absolutely will not reveal to the public, classifying it as top secret. So if the government decides what they reveal to us and what they keep secret, what determines if what they reveal is 100% truthful? One of America's greatest feats was being the first country to put man on the moon. Although it was a live event broadcasted around the world, there has been many speculation on the credibility of what really happened on the moon. There are multiple plot holes and imperfections that have been dug up in what the government has released, and a majority of what was found may shock you. One point made by skeptics is that the technology at the period of the space race was not advanced enough to make the moon landing possible. The radiation levels in deep space would expose astronauts to very high levels of radiation. Although NASA states that they lined the spacecraft with aluminum to prevent radiation from affecting the astronauts, the solar activity in space would be far too much for a lining of aluminum to stop it. The astronauts came back to Earth unfazed by radiation and did not mention the true dangers of the radiation field that they apparently crossed. Another theory is a more common one among theorists, and that is the flag was waving on video on the moon, although there is no atmosphere in space to make this possible. Buzz Aldrin saluting the proudly waving American flag on the moon remains one of the iconic images of the Apollo 11 mission, a declaration of U.S. supremacy over space race rivals, the Soviet Union. But if there is no atmosphere on the moon, there is no wind, so why is the flag waving? States Royal Museums Greenwich. The pole that the flag was attached to was made from aluminum, and when it was placed, some stored energy could have caused the flag to continue moving. The movement was far more drastic than scientifically possible. It has been a total of 51 years since the Apollo 11 mission occurred, yet we haven't stepped foot on the moon since. I find it odd that with such an interesting subject that we haven't nearly completely explored, we just haven't been back. One of the more convincing arguments is that the US was so eager to beat the Russians to the moon that we just faked the whole thing. It makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Since we were so far behind the Russians, it would be way easier to mimic the event rather than follow through with going to the moon. The US was under immense pressure to get to the moon before the Soviets. The Soviet Union had already proven they were far ahead of the US in space technology. The first woman in space, the first multi-person crew, the first spacewalk, the first spacecraft to reach the moon, the first pictures of the far side of the moon, and even the first soft landing of the moon were all Russian achievements, states A.J. Gentile. The Soviets had beaten us in just about every aspect of space exploration, yet we still somehow beat them to the moon. Years behind the Soviets with technology, yet we still prevailed. Seems almost impossible. The moon landing is such a great feat and takes so much time, money, and technology, yet most argue we just didn't have nearly enough to make the space journey possible. The ATM was a groundbreaking invention that seemed otherworldly and had just been invented at the time, yet we had the technology to land people on the moon. Although the majority that supports the idea of the moon landing say there's way too much evidence to say we did go to the moon. One of their arguments is that there were retroreflectors placed on the moon to reflect laser beams sent from Earth, allowing scientists to measure the exact distance between the Earth and the moon. This theory can be argued against by stating once more that the technology in the time period was far too underdeveloped to make this event possible. The thought of machines placed on the moon by the Apollo 11 astronauts that shoot lasers all the way back to Earth before wireless headphones were even invented sounds impossible. With all these pieces of evidence, I want you to strongly consider the fact that the government lied to us about the moon landing in 1969.